And this is the And Go podcast with Brian.
Michael.
And Bill.
And today's topic is the Star Wars movie. Just for reference, I have not seen it. I've been spoiled out the ass. These two have. And let's see how the hell this plays out. Two diehard fans with one more casual fan sitting in the Spectre seats. So, which one of you gents want to go first?
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
All right, so, well, I guess it goes without saying. Spoilers for Rise of the Skywalker.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, honestly, more than I thought I would. But I guess we should talk a little bit about The Last Jedi. Parts of it I really liked. Other parts I thought were...
The middle, pretty much?
I thought parts of The Last Jedi were awful.
That's why I'm saying the middle of The Last Jedi just dragged.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Okay, and even the chase at the end, I mean, towards the tails ends of that middle, ooh.
Yeah,
even the hatching sequences in Last Jedi, like, oh my goodness, it just went on forever.
Yeah. The whole casino thing.
Yeah.
Worst kid. But I did like how they... Okay, so I feel like I'm getting off topic. I thought the first 30 minutes of Rise of the Skywalker very rushed. Pacing was all over the place. Once it settled down a little bit, I was kind of locked in and enjoyed myself. I like that Chewbacca played a big role. I just thought he was really underutilized. I like that. I'm surprised that I liked C-3PO's involvement because he's always been really annoying. But
fan service.
He was important to the story, and he had some great lines. He had some great quips, so that I liked. In terms of it being like the tree topper for the whole series, kind of fell flat a little bit. So that's kind of my overall feelings. I liked the idea of Rey being no one, so I didn't really like how they retconned that particular element of The Last Jedi. You know, forcing her to be she's a Palpatine now. I thought that was a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I knew that they were going to flip Ben Solo back the good side.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they were doing that. They were going to do that since it was pretty obvious since the Force Awakens. I mean,
yeah, but I also like that they killed him. You know, because that always kind of bothered me about Darth Vader. Like, oh, you did all these terrible things for decades, but you know what? It's like the sinner on their deathbed repenting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all forgiven now. Don't worry.
You're saved. Yeah. You've been saved. Yeah. I suppose in a way though they kind of did the same thing with Ben or with Kylo. And,
They did. Yeah. Yeah. He. You know, the movie started with him murdering these villagers or whatever, protecting the beacon. Oh no, he's good now. He has a blue lightsaber.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's Leia's random lightsaber. What happened to Luke's green lightsaber?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of have thought that throughout these three movies is like, what did he do with it? Did he bury it? Did he throw it away? What happened to it?
Yeah, I really thought that it was going to be in Rise of the Skywalker. I really thought that.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah, because they made this big deal over all these old relics, and it wasn't even mentioned.
It was kind of odd too because that final scene where she like buries them, I'm like, she looks over and it's like Luke and Leia, but I'm like, that's not even really Luke's lightsaber. Like he used it for a while, but that was Anakin's,
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, that I remember thinking that in the theater that it kind of pulled me out of that moment because I'm like, well, that's kind of like, that's Anakin's, lightsaber. So the significance wasn't quite there for me, with her burying like Anakin's lightsaber and Leia's,
And on top of that, Leia spent no time at the moisture farm. So
yeah, I couldn't figure that one out either. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you couldn't go back to Alderaan and bury hers, but
true. Yeah, find a rock floating in space.
Yeah, you got to go to the meteor belt that is now in that system and put it there. So just to cap it off, overall, I enjoyed it. Now my expectations were pretty low, so that helped. What about you, Bill?
I mean, okay. There's a couple of different ways to look at this. If I wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, if I was like more of a casual fan, or had maybe never seen any of the movies at all, if I was going in to watch it as a film, then I think it would have definitely been better than it was for me. Like I didn't hate it. I did not like Last Jedi. In fact, I rewatched them in the week leading up. I watched through all the films, and man, when I got to Last Jedi, I was just like, I still just do not like this. The pacing was terrible, and I really did not like the treatment that they gave Luke's character. Like, I wasn't even upset that he died, but it was just like the way they went about everything was just felt really awkward and disjointed. And this one, I was kind of like hoping for that they would like tie up some of that stuff and do more with the story as far as the sequels go, and it just kind of didn't deliver for me. And there was parts where I was like, I don't know, like I'm watching through and it like there's just things that kind of yanked me out of the story, especially as a Star Wars film. Like, what in the world was with the dagger with the thing that pulled out? I was like, am I watching like Goonies or what? I'm like, well, there was like all these like weird film references kind of jammed in there. And maybe it was my imagination or just looking for something, but it just seemed like there was all these little subtle things like jammed in there. Like, and that was the big one, was the weird like holding up it to the shoreline, the rocks and the debris. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, that was a really lame moment for me, and it, I don't know. I was just like, why are you cramming in a Goonies reference into a Star Wars film? And then it was like also
Especially when
kind of
you're a freaking wizard. You can't like use your wizard powers to find the thing.
yeah, and it just, I don't know. There was so many things where it felt like it was like shoehorned in to extend the film when it didn't need to be. Like, this film could have very easily, like, tying up 9 movies worth of a saga that's been going on for across 3-4 decades. Like, it could have easily been a 3-hour film and not really satisfied everybody, but instead we got like half a film that was stretched into 2.5 hours.
Sure.
And like the whole thing with 3PO was kind of cool, but I was just like, I don't know. It just seemed forced. It seemed lame. Like, so he has some sort of programming block that like makes it to where he can't translate. I'm like, give me a break. So now we're going to go on this like weird, like questing mission, as a group that it just, I don't know, to me felt disjointed. And then like, when they're on the planet where she uses the like Goonies dagger, and I'm like, well, why is it that you're going to try to take a boat across to this thing? Like, we're in the Star Wars universe. You're telling me nothing you have flies? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, so now we're going to brave the ocean? What? So we can get that weird like Castaway reference where she's trying to crest the thing up over the high, like, the high wave, because that felt like another weird little like movie reference. I was like, oh, so we went from Goonies to Castaway. I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Hop back in the Falcon and just hover over the spot and jump.
Yeah, jump, right, drop down. Like, I really couldn't understand a lot of that stuff. I was like, I don't get it. I don't get why we're shoehorning in these like weird plot points to just try to have like this extra bit of tension or action that really doesn't feel like it should be there, needs to be there. And just like, I think throughout from Force Awakens all the way through this one, they've kind of like suffered from this like need to like reconnect with the original trilogy. And I don't know why. Like, for all the faults that the prequels had, they had a good underlying story. And it was a unique story. There were small little harken backs, like with Anakin in the blowing up the trade ship, shut down all the droids. That kind of was like a Death Star feel. But for the most part, the prequels kind of were, had their own story going on and their own action sequences. But these like seem like they just are like constantly trying to like retread like portions of the original trilogy, and it just didn't set well with me. I'm like, well, why are we bringing back Palpatine and then retconning in that like Snoke was some creation of his this whole time, and you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like they were like, and the like, her having the vision of her evil self. It's just like there's almost too many references in these sequel movies for me, to where it's like, so now you're just kind of like rewriting the original trilogy with different characters. But
Yeah, and I'll give them it they were in a tight spot in the sense of they wanted to, they went too far with going back to the original trilogy. They knew that everyone wanted a big departure from the prequels. They wanted more of that feel that you got in the original trilogy, but they overcorrected. And then, like you said, it was just, oh, it's the Death Star again. Oh, it's another planet killer. Look at all these planet killers all over the goddamn place.
So did it feel like a fanfic almost? From what I'm getting?
In a way, yeah. And I think that's kind of, I think if you read some of the articles and interviews, Abrams almost kind of admits to that he's kind of what he was doing,
That's interesting. I wonder if they spent any time on like forums reading fanfics.
Yeah. Well, I think what he's just, as a fan of the trilogy, I think he was just trying to like work in elements of the original trilogy to try to, I don't know, satisfy fans and things. But I think they did that, but in the wrong way. Like, I think the fallacy of the prequels was that the dialogue was terrible, and that there was all this like unnecessary junk like shoehorned in there, like Jar Jar and stuff like that. The story was good, and I really feel like Star Wars fans didn't hate the story. It was just they hated all the like horrible line delivery and the horrible dialogue that just like, ruined the movie, and the weird pacing,
Totally agree. It looked, the prequels all looked really good.
Yeah.
I like the bit on Coruscant when they're like doing the speeder chase, that was fun.
Yeah. And
so
I think
talking about the prequels, how do you think they compare to this? The new trilogy to the first prequel versus the sequel trilogy?
For all their faults, it's the new trilogy, in my opinion, blow the prequels out of the water.
As a whole, yes, I would agree with that. I think that the sequels are better than the prequels overall. Storyline, I think I would, in a few moments within the prequels, I like better. But if I really had to pick, those three films versus these three, I would probably pick.
Yeah, George Lucas went a little bit CG crazy there for a bit. It's like, I can recreate everything, and the fans got all outraged about him remastering and only publishing the remastered version of the original trilogy. Remember that whole debacle?
Don't get me started. I'm still
okay. Let's move away. That's a whole nother debate.
You want to know the most egregious point of that? Was replacing Anakin's Force Ghost in Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
I mean, seriously, that was Lucas just giving a big fuck you to all the fans, because everybody hated Hayden Christensen, everybody, and like it was universal that they him and his stupid sand line,
man, it's a meme.
Oh my god! And then for him to know that going in remastering them, and replacing Anakin's Force Ghost was, I feel like it was literally for nothing else, just to be like, fuck you guys.
Well, considering what I hear, George Lucas doesn't really like Star Wars fans. Probably why he gave the series to Disney. Probably.
Oh, for $4 billion.
Yeah, right.
It was profitable, but if it gets him more money and gets it off his back, he didn't want to do this new trilogy. There's no way he could have pulled it off in his old age.
Going back to the Force Ghost thing, it also makes no fucking sense, because Alec Guinness is still the Force Ghost for Obi-Wan,
Exactly.
So why are you the Force Ghost from when you were at your prime? I don't understand.
Yeah, only thing I can figure is maybe they thought, well, that was like when he was last, good or whatever. I don't know,
sure.
but it didn't make any sense to me either. And I'm kind of surprised that they almost didn't go back and like reshoot all of like Obi-Wan's
Me too.
Force Ghost things with Ewan McGregor just to make that fit. because it didn't fit. It didn't make any sense at all. Because, like you said, Obi-Wan is still Alec Guinness. I really don't understand, how that was supposed to work at all.
Yeah,
But
you're right though. I think that is thinking back on it. Of all the revisions they made, that was probably the worst one. I mean, redoing the band and Jabba's palace, that was pretty bad, but does not compare to
yeah,
having to see Hayden Christensen's stupid fucking face again.
yeah, yeah. So,
I'll,
but yeah, as far as Last Jedi, like I get the other. I think the other thing I kind of had was like, as much as it like definitely is devastating to watch Han die in Force Awakens, it really did kind of make sense for the story, and it was kind of the passing the baton that they were trying to do, right?
sure.
From old characters to new characters, and they did so in a way that like kind of made you remember Obi-Wan's death and others who had like sacrificed along the way, and gave you that heavy moment. And in some cases I feel like they like started to do that in this one, in Last Jedi, in the newest one, but then they kept like for some reason like backtracking on them, you
Hmm.
know so they would like, well, because like they blow up the ship with Chewie in it, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, just kidding, he's still alive. So
Yeah.
you have that moment where you're like, holy shit, Chewie's gone, and that's the
Mhm.
last we're going to see of him. And he's been throughout, through the original trilogy and even into the prequels. But like Rise of Skywalker, like, is where he's, where that's the end of the line for him, like what they've done with other characters. But then they're like, no, just kidding, he's still alive. He was on another ship. And that stuff started to feel cheap.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing with 3PO, because 3PO is like, this is the only way you're going to get the information you need, and it's really important. So I should sacrifice myself by allowing my memory to be erased. And you're like, holy crap, 3PO is finally doing something besides
Huh.
thinking of himself, right? And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, never mind. R2 gives him all his memory back. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like it started to like cheapen it,
I
for
think
me.
that's some of the Marvel influence carrying over because
Yeah, yeah,
up until Endgame, death meant nothing.
yeah,
And it's happened before. I felt like in Force Awakens, it was getting really quippy, and parts of it felt like a Marvel movie, which I didn't like.
yeah.
I enjoy a lot of the comedy that they infuse in Marvel, but that's not it's not what I came to see. Star Wars was never a quippy quip fest. There would be funny moments, but it was never that.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, I mean, because you did get some lines out of like Han and stuff that kind of made you chuckle, but it fit in with his character.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it never felt like he was like gonna like break the fourth wall and wait for a laugh track kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with that. Yeah. So I kind of came away with these mixed feelings, because there was aspects where I was like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good, and then there was others that I was just like, man, if they had just cleaned up these like weird little things, then it would have been made for a better film, a more well-rounded film. You know,
I
like
went
I
into it.
really go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I really like the whole like calling in ships from all over, the galaxy kind of thing in the end, because it wasn't another like one small plucky group flies in and blows everything up and it's all good,
Sure.
right? So I was like, okay, that was a big positive for me, is that they had done that to death, the whole like, we're going to land this little group and because they did this in Force Awakens, and of course the original trilogy, we're going to like land a small group and blow up the shield, and then this other small group of like 3 or 4 fighters is going to like make the 1 in a million shot and blow up the thing, so it's like, but this one they were like, well, our only hope is if everybody kind of bands together on this one.
And who better to go around the galaxy than Lando and Chewie in the Millennium Falcon?
Right.
Doing
right.
hey, we need your help.
Yeah.
And that's probably why people didn't show up at the end of Last Jedi, because it's like, okay, we're not doing this again. But having the publicity tour of Lando and Chewie in this iconic ship, even in that universe, it's got to be a legendary ship.
Yeah.
That made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty good moment. Yeah, I thought, and it was something that was different.
I choked up a little bit, honestly. I mean, that scene was in the trailer, so I knew it was coming. But
Yeah.
when you see all these ships coming out of hyperspace, I choked up a little bit.
Because you do kind of get that throughout these, through Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. You kind of get this like, where is the New Republic? They never really
Yeah.
explain what happened. Like, you finally destroy, most of the power structure to the Empire and rebuild a New Republic, but you never get this like sense of like why it started to fall apart again. You know what I mean?
It made no sense. So, because you have three factions. You have the First Order,
Right.
you have the Resistance, and you have the New Republic. So, was the Resistance resisting to the New Republic? Didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, I struggled with that at first too, and after thinking about it, the only thing I think they were trying to do is maybe draw a line, like parallels between like the the Axis and the Allies, and then like the French Resistance.
Sure. Okay.
That was like the whole behind enemy lines resistance, and then there was like the formalized army, But the New Republic, and especially in Rise of Skywalker, was like kind of nowhere to be found. Like they had no fleet. They had like it was like, well, where are they? Like what happened to this whole New Republic that they had built for like decades? I couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, they demilitarized everything. They got rid of all the ships. They got rid of all, because you could say, oh, all right, well, in the Force Awakens, they blow up those 3 planets, which were supposed to be, the core planets of this new government system.
Yeah.
But where are the ships? Where's the Navy? Where's the freaking army, man?
Well, plus they blow up the one like central system, but like even the scenes of like the Senate in the prequels, like how many star systems were represented there?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you killed like what 1% of them, like so it should be like somewhere else, But and that also reminds me, I've had a serious problem with the Star Wars movies going back to the original trilogy that I feel like this is an opportunity to air this grievance. Why in the world is it that all the large cruisers and ships on the Rebel side never have any guns?
That's the freaking medical frigate. This Nebulon
why bring
D.
it?
Yeah.
Why is it there? Why are you having your medical frigate as a target? Like I never understood that. And why have all these giant ships? Why build them? Put the resources into them if they don't fire anything?
Yeah, or even I can't remember the designation or whatever, but the transport ships, the kind of egg-shaped transport ships with the little bridge on top. They have no guns. I mean, I've looked at all the cross sections. They're literally just transport ships, unless you're doing a ground invasion or something.
Right.
Why are they there?
I mean, I could see that being part of like, okay, you're trying to move like your whole group of rebels, and maybe you have one of those large ships that does that. But like, why don't they have any defenses? Even like defenses against small ships. Like when you see like the Star Destroyers go by, there's like, not only do they have large cannons that can like, blow up these other large ships of the rebels, or later the New Republic, but they've got lasers all over the place to protect them from fighters and other stuff. And I'm like, why is it that every time they build these fleets and have these like fleets of ships, why is it they have zero defenses besides the X-wings and and the other fighters? I just couldn't understand that.
And all you ever see are like these teeny tiny hangars on these ships, so it's not like they can deploy a bunch of fighters,
Yeah. And even if they did, cool, but you should really have something that can kind of like have large amounts of firepower, because that there are Star Destroyers out there, that there are these large ships, dreadnoughts and other things but they always seem to rely on this like 1 in a million chance of like this fighter getting through and blowing something up. I'm like, I don't get that. So.
No, yeah, me neither.
Anyway, I just had to get that off my chest.
No, it's a great point, man. That's actually something that's bothered me for a long time as well. Mon Calamari cruisers, they do their job, but I always go back to that stupid Nebulon B frigate. Why is it there? Why does it exist? Even in the video games, it never. I thought maybe we would see it doing something in the games, but no, it's just something there to protect.
Yeah, and you're like, protect what? Just be another target, a large target, I guess.
Just leave. Just leave.
Yeah. Of course, and then there's the whole like you guys do realize that space is 3-dimensional and you can leave in any direction.
Yeah.
They're blocking our path, and I'm like, then go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always have to. One of the things that I really liked. This is shifting gears a little bit. I always liked Firefly universe because there was no sound in space.
Yeah.
So I always have to kind of suspend my disbelief when you're getting all these audio cues, the lasers firing and everything in space.
Yeah.
Even with the prequels, I think Space Mary Poppins was my least favorite scene in any Star Wars movie. Even was worse than the whole love scene on Naboo. It just made me cringe so hard, man.
Ouch.
Yeah.
You know, those diehard Leia fans really wanted to see their inner space nanny take care of all the rebel fleet.
I wouldn't have even minded like a Leia Force scene, like no doubt. But that was just really awkward. I was like, what
is
in the
that
world
her
was
only
that?
epic force power that she shows off? Be able to protect herself? Is that it?
I think that other than like, being able to like connect with Luke, I think that was really it. Yeah. As far as what they show. Yeah.
There were a million different ways to do
The
that.
Force internet. That's the thought I had. All the Force users telepathically telling each other jokes, sharing horrible Jedi memes.
Jedi memes, yeah.
You're such a Count Dooku. Have their own slang out there.
If there was, I went into Rise of the Skywalker thinking that we were going to have to suffer through some bullshit Finn and Rose love story.
Yeah.
I was delighted that there was no shoehorned in, and there was even a moment where you kind of thought, okay, they're going to try to ship Poe and Rey,
Yeah.
And then I really wouldn't have minded if Finn and Rey ended up together because that would have made sense,
Yeah, they were kind of inkling at that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would have been fine with that. But then they oh no, we can't have a black man with a white woman. I'm sure that's not the reason why.
It wouldn't go well with China. It definitely wouldn't go over in China, supposedly.
Well, these movies always flop in China anyway because they didn't get the original trilogy till like the prequels came out. So there's no, you
Rabbit
can slap.
fan base.
Yeah, there's no rabid fan base. There's not millions of people going to see the movie day one. But if they had tried to, there's no chemistry between them. If they had tried to make that happen in this movie, I probably would have hated it. Just because of that.
I'm curious about the Finn resolution. They set up to do something epic with Finn, I think, in the first movie. Did that ever pay off?
Not really. I don't know. I don't think they ever really followed through with him at all.
No.
Okay, that's very disappointing.
Kind of had his moment of true redemption when he blew up that Star Destroyer, I guess. And he got to
new
use
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought they were going to ship him and that black girl. I was like, oh, isn't this convenient? Introduce this black character.
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, man.
It was kind of like the South Park token thing.
Yes, exactly. And there was
God.
even rumors about her, like an early action figures references being linked, as they decided not to go with that, which I thought was smart. All the black people in the universe can't be related, man. That would just be weird. There's only one black family in the whole goddamn universe.
Yeah, that'd be really messed up.
That would be really messed up, yeah.
Well, there's at least Billy D. Williams' character.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Billy D a little bit?
Okay.
I think I loved seeing him back. I always liked Lando. Fun character. Spiced it up a little bit. Do you think they brought him back because you killed off Han, Carrie Fisher died, unfortunately, killed off Luke, kind of running out of original cast members? Do you think they brought him back just because they needed someone else from OG trilogy?
I think so. I think they wanted that like parallel moment with like, and then this one where they have, him with Chewie in the Millennium Falcon again. I
think it's just a J.J. Abrams crutch. he wants to do something cool, he brings in someone from the. Remember, he did the Star Trek reboot, and they redid Khan. Okay,
Right.
for Christ's sake, Khan.
Yeah.
It's just a habit of he's a nostalgia basket. J.J. Abrams. I used to respect the man, but now I just see him as someone who can appeal to the masses.
Yeah, I have to agree. He leans on nostalgia too much. I mean, and I like a good bit. Yeah,
Member Chewie.
Member. Yeah, no, I think I like to see a little bit of nostalgia. I like to see tie-ins, and I like to see things that make you go, "Oh, okay," like I remember that from from the previous film or whatever, and like brings you more into the universe. But when you like retread and use nostalgia as a crutch, I don't know. To me, that's what's kind of cheapened these movies in a lot of ways. I think Brian's right. I think he leans on nostalgia too much.
Yeah, I'd agree. And who knows how much of that is him, studio,
Yeah, that's true. It could be producers, could be studio. Yeah.
I always feel like there's a quota of nods you have to make.
Yeah.
Acceptable.
Yeah, but Rian Johnson didn't have to do shit like that, so I blame Abrams for this.
That's a fair point. There were not a lot of callbacks in Last Jedi.
In fact, he just disrespected a lot of things. That's why a lot of fans were pissed at him. I understand it. I mean, I found a lot of his decisions interesting. I think his execution was horrible and how he proceeded it. But overall, the script was just horrible. I heard someplace that a screenwriter uses that as an example. He used to use Return Empire as an example of a good screenplay, and he uses The Last Jedi as an example of a bad screenplay.
Sure.
I mean, I think Rian Johnson went too far the other direction. Yeah, he was like, screw nostalgia. We're going to take this universe and peel it apart and make something different with it, and it just didn't work. He didn't have enough background in the universe, I think, for fans and for people following the movies to really enjoy and latch onto. And whereas Abrams went too far into the nostalgia. You kind of have to strike that balance. Now, as far as the new films go, the one that really did that for me was Rogue One.
Sure.
I think Rogue One kind of struck that balance where it tied in the story in the right way, but it had unique characters, it had a unique storyline. Like, you felt like you were in the Star Wars universe watching it, like the original trilogy had set up, but you were watching a new film. You weren't watching like a retread or just a bunch of nostalgia bombs. That for me was probably out of like the new era of Disney era of films. I think Rogue One was the best at doing that.
I totally agree, man. I mean, I know that we're getting off topic, but I will say I love the espionage element in there. There was not a love story to be found. I know I keep harping on that. Saul Guerrero was really cool. He showed back up in Jedi Fallen Order, which was nice to see. They got Forrest Whitaker to voice him and everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
I have to disagree. I mean, it was a good, competent movie, and it was just boring. It was pretty flat, in my opinion. I mean, yes, good action, but the characterization of those characters were pretty flat. The fact that the robot had the most personality out of all the characters sort of says something. Everyone was otherwise stoic. Everyone tried to be too serious, I think.
That's kind of what I liked about it, though, because I mean, when you look at that, the main character, her life would make anybody like that. I mean, she lived a really rough life from the way the story they built around her. So, like, I don't know. I think that particular film needed those kind of characters, and I like the way that they used the droid as the comic relief without like trying to shoehorn those weird lines in.
They didn't set up her motivation completely well in those regards.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a plot hole, but it's
that was also kind of the point, though. She didn't really have any motivation to participate until kind of forced to.
Wasn't it her father? It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah, but she didn't. No, that was it. The father was building the weapon, the Death Star, right?
which added that like personal connection for her, and you do see that when she like actually sees her father again alive for the first time, but it's very brief, which I thought was a good way to handle it.
Agreed. Yeah.
And it also like the nostalgia part wasn't like slammed in your face. Like, okay, you get the like 2 seconds of the blue milk, so that's kind of one of those. Oh, hey, look, the blue milk. You're right.
Yeah. Remember
So it's like,
this? Yeah.
yeah, but it wasn't like slammed in your face. Like, hey, remember this? Bam, bam, bam. Like they weren't drinking blue milk in every scene. To where you're like, all right, enough. It was just kind of that little subtle.
You saw the two guys on Jeddah, right? The ones that you saw on in Mos Eisley, where one gets his arm cut off.
Yeah, yeah.
Saw those guys, which was fine. I mean, I guess right after their scene in Rogue One, they had to leave the planet, right? That's what because otherwise they'd be dead.
Yeah, yeah.
I always also like seeing competent stormtroopers in.
Yeah.
Fairly competent.
No, yeah, they usually are more bumbling than the enemies or Maxwell Smart from Get Smart.
Sure.
But that's the typical action movie trope. The villains can never hit anything. But yeah, had some good moments. It was just too flat for my taste.
The only real problem with Rogue One I had was them stealing the mind-reading alien from American Dad.
I didn't realize that was an American Dad thing.
Yeah, well, like with Jeff and the alien, like it has the tentacles that reads his brain, and I was like,
right, yeah.
I was like, did they really just steal that and make it part of Star Wars? But whatever.
I didn't really like Bodhi, the defected.
Yeah.
I like the idea of there being a defector. This is more of a costume thing than anything. But his goggles, he has like these hardware store goggles that he just keeps on top of his head for 5 days. Thought that was kind of ridiculous. Can we get this man a change of clothes, for fuck's sake?
Well, getting back to Rise of the Skywalker, what did you think of the like resolution to everything? Are you happy with it? Not really, but
not. I did not really enjoy Rey taking the Skywalker name. I thought that was
agree.
a little weird.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was wondering about.
Yeah. I mean, the whole theme for her throughout the movie was, don't be afraid to be who you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, actually, I'm going to go ahead and disregard my own name. You should be Ray Palpatine at this point. But no, I'm going to drop that. And instead, I'm going to pick up the name of, these people that I've probably interacted with for a total of 5 days in my life.
Yeah.
Really? They go that low? I haven't heard this in all my spoilers, but that sounds lame.
Well, it kind of felt weird because you're like literally in the last like 30 seconds of the film, you're like, so what does it have to do with the rise of a Skywalker? Like, where is this rise of a Skywalker? And then you're like, are you serious? That's it? Because she changed her name?
The name, then fly into the sky.
She walks off into the sunset.
Yeah, sunset.
On some sort of Force equivalent.
Yeah, she just walks off on Tatooine. So
it did not feel. It honestly felt like another chapter more than a resolution.
Yeah, I have a prediction. So first of all, I don't buy that they're done with this whole deal. They would not have renamed her a Skywalker in the end of that film just to have that be the end.
Yeah, but are they going to do movies, or are they planning something for their TV series?
It could be either one, but where I think they're going with it, and this, I'm just getting this on record now, but if I had to take a guess, I'm going to guess that she has a Force baby in her from the way that Kylo, or Ben Solo, heals her. He, puts his hand on, her abdomen, and stuff.
Oh,
And like,
some sort of Jesus reference, Immaculate Conception.
well, back to like Anakin. Remember, Anakin was a
Okay.
Force child or whatever, or even if he was the chosen one, because there's been like this argument back and forth on whether or not it was something the Force did itself or whether or not Plagueis did it. So, but I'm telling you, I feel like that's where they're going. Is that right before he dies, Kylo puts a Force baby in her.
Oh,
Sure.
God. Well, that might be a plan, yeah. How well do you think they can execute it? I hear this movie isn't doing as good as The Last Jedi, but I could be wrong. Numbers aren't in completely.
I mean, because then you have like you have a Skywalker and Palpatine baby, right?
Yeah.
So that's named another. Then you have another Skywalker, right? Because now she's taken the name. So I really feel like I was like and again, where he like places his hand to force heal her, I'm like, there was something about that felt awkward, and I'm like,
And then they kiss.
Yeah. And in the end, I was like, oh man, I bet you that was a setup in case they wanted to like make it out to where he like, manipulated the Force and gave her a Force baby.
You may as well name that baby Star Wars at that point, because it's a Skywalker Palpatine solo baby.
Yeah.
And
That's
like maybe
true.
then Lando can help take care of it to really complete. It's every single
go.
Star Wars character in one person.
Lando and Chewie raise it. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a fun sitcom. Lando and Chewie trying to raise a baby that had the Force.
2 men and a little Skywalker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reyes just drops him off to save another universe, and they're like, oh, how do we take care of a baby?
It's just R2 dragging him around in a little wagon most of the time.
That'd be fun.
Hey, why does it have to be a male? Why can't it be a female baby?
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah,
So
right.
sexist. It has to be a male. Of course.
Yeah.
That's an interesting prediction, though. I did not.
Well, if I would have saw that, I probably would be slapping my forehead because, Star Wars always had the sort of biblical allegory story in there, as a lot of stories do, and Bible probably took it from other things, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. I mean, there's been religious undertones in all of them, but he did with Anakin. He definitely did like the Immaculate Conception, like Christ child kind of thing a lot.
They insinuated that, yes.
Yeah.
The way they handled.
Also insinuated Palpatine was dead, so who knows how insinuation goes in the Star Wars universe.
And that for me wasn't like this like out of the realm of possibility. What were they thinking? Type of thing, but it just wasn't set up at all. It just I feel like they just needed to tie that in better, or maybe like even if you don't explain all of it, it just was kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, Palpatine's been there, in the shadows,
Pulling the strings, yeah.
Oh, I hear there's actually a book that's meant to bridge The Last Jedi and this movie that fills in the blanks, but that's, in my opinion, lazy storytelling when you need a book in order to properly tell a story. But
go ahead.
No, the Star Wars franchise, people don't read necessarily, except for the die-hard fans who read all the novels.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a few, and I don't mind like reading ones that bridge the gaps. Like read, and enjoyed ones like Shadows and other stuff. But when it pops up in a movie like that, it's kind of. And what was with the weird like mechanical arm that was carrying him everywhere? Like, what was the significance of that?
It almost seemed like he was,
It's ageism. That's what it is.
It seemed like he was being puppeted. He was like artificially alive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, so was it a Force thing? Was it like a clone thing? Was it a mechanical thing? Because like, is this his body from before? How did they recover it? Like, there's a lot of questions that made it feel kind of weird that he just pops up.
Yeah, who recovered the body? Who recovered his body and brought him to the Sith planet?
Yeah, and like, would he die if he was disconnected from that thing? Because that thing was massive. It wasn't just like a wheelchair. It was like this weird, massive mechanical arm that was like, I don't know, like you said, like he was like a puppet, like on the end of it.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
they wanted to harken back to Doctor Who's the Dalek Lord Davros. He always had him when they brought him back. Well, originally he was always a half man, half machine thing. Maybe they were going. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how well it would simulate it. Did his face look melted at all?
Yeah, it looks pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a far stretch to make a comparison to Doctor Who's Davro, but who
It
knows?
kind of made an awkward moment too, where with the whole like, if Rey kills him, then she like becomes the Sith. I'm like, that felt weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because there's a lot of times where Jedi kill Sith lords, and I'm like, including Vader killing Palpatine. I'm like,
Yeah.
That just something about that like just didn't add up for me. I'm like, why? Like how does that work out?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because
it made
they're
sense with
related.
Luke.
Yeah. Right, but because that was like a giving into hatred, not like saving your friends or doing you know what I mean. Like it was kind of a weird. If you kill me, this is what's going to happen.
You will only make me stronger.
Well, it was that if Rey killed Palpatine, that she would become the new Sith Lord no matter what.
Yeah.
That she would like inherit his throne. He kept talking about this throne, and which was also a weird, like, again with the tie-ins, it felt like this like Game of Thrones moment, where they like show the big stone throne, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And then also for those of you who watched Harry Potter, I don't know if either one of you guys have, but like there was definitely that like where all the voices encourage her. I was like, oh, so what? He's like Voldemort now, and we have all the like the voices encouraging Harry, in this battle. Like I don't know.
They just threw together the ultimate nerdgasm and helped it.
It kind of felt
baked
that
into
way.
a good cake.
It did. It kind of felt that way. It was like, I feel like I was picking up on all these like movie references. And again, maybe it was just something that my mind was connecting that wasn't intentional, but it just, some of it kind of felt like I was like, were they just like referencing all these other movies or what?
I thought it was kind of ridiculous that the Star Destroyers needed a navigation tower to leave the atmosphere.
Yeah, give me a break. Yeah.
Yeah, can you not just go?
But the rebels were able to just fly right in, and there was no problem. And I don't know.
Yeah, just a lot of the stuff just kind of came out of left field. Like I feel like they released the Mandalorian episode 2 days before Rise of the Skywalker. I think just so they could introduce force healing because that hadn't been seen before.
At least not in the films. Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that, and then like you said, the Emperor. It's kind of sad when you have to rely on the opening crawl to understand who the big baddie is.
Yeah.
It could have been 10 minutes in Last Jedi where they referenced these weird radio transmissions, and everything would have been fine.
That shows that this new trilogy was not organized from the start.
Not at all.
They had a plan. They had a basic framework that the directors could have played off of. This new trilogy would probably be more coherent and less the mess that these individual movies are.
Yeah, and I don't get how studio that has the next 3 decades worth of Marvel movies planned out. I don't understand how they can, have something turn out to where you have to retcon the entire middle film.
Yeah. I was just about to say that, and I think that. And even within the films, like I feel like, especially in Rise of Skywalker, like I feel like it was rushed. Like somebody wrote a script, and then they went through and were like, "Oh man, we wrote ourselves into a corner here. Yeah. What do we need to do to like? Okay, well, in order to explain this like major plot point, we're gonna have to make it to where the Star Destroyers can't navigate out of the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like so they're like trying to like they wrote this script that was kind of haphazard and done quickly, and then they like tried to go and like paste it back together by fixing some of the problems rather than like rewriting sections.
Okay, I have to ask about the actual transition. I've heard this movie has more transitioning sequences than any Star Wars before. Does that feel about right? Wipe. really quick action, or is that just something I heard?
No, I think the prequels had way more whites, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. It was making me think that this was made for the ADHD generation.
No, because I
But
feel like throughout
no,
the majority of the film, they pretty much have like the main cast together, which they
Yeah.
haven't
Oh.
done a lot.
yeah, maybe I misunderstood that. I just wanted to know about that. That would annoy the hell if they just went from scene to scene to scene. What about the cuts? Is it all over the
No,
place?
but I will tell you that that sequence where they're kind of like doing the whole like adventuring thing and the clues, they do bounce to a lot of different like planets. So that may be what they were talking about. They're kind of like it's not like there's one or two like major settings where a lot of the action and the story plays out. In that beginning part, they kind of like go here, then go there, then go here, then go there. So
Yeah.
that may be what they're talking about.
Okay, so in the first sequence, they do it a lot.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of what I was talking
location
about.
wise, yeah.
Beginning with the first 30 minutes just being, one thing after another, but not in a good way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now I hear they tried to fit like a whole bunch of ideas in a short and not enough time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It did. It felt rushed, but also parts felt like unnecessary.
So far, I also want to know about the writing. You mentioned a few good writing points, but
Yeah.
was the writing bad at all in certain places? Besides Palpatine, but that's usually comically evil bad. That's to be forgiven, the Palpatine evil speech.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay. There weren't a lot of opportunities for like big chunks of dialogue.
Yeah.
Was thinking back on it, it was C-3PO had some good lines that fit his character and added some humor to his scenes. No one really had the chance to. Pretty much everything that was said was additional exposition.
Yeah.
Oh, you're-
I wouldn't say there was any like there wasn't any like I hate sand, it gets everywhere kind of dialogue. There wasn't anything like that. Really was like, oh my god, that was terrible. Um, but like you said, there was a lot of action, a lot of like story progression going on just through the scenes themselves. So I feel like you're right. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for like long periods of dialogue or like excessive amounts of dialogue. Um, there were some unnecessary pieces, like I said, like I don't know, the whole the thing with the woman in the mask,
Sure,
or
yeah.
it's kind of like that didn't really need to be there, but whatever. You really didn't get any resolution to their little storyline either.
Yeah,
So,
not at all.
Um,
So
The
about
whole-
character development, how does that play out? Does Finn? I mean, he doesn't get a big part. It's sort of a letdown, as you guys said. What about Poe? Character development. They seem rather static. Does at least Ray change by the end, or
You
is it a
get-
superficial change?
you get Ray and Ben develop as characters, and I think everybody else kind of is stagnant, if I had to really say.
It's going to be
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
painful.
They did drive home that Poe was supposed to be the new Han Solo because they gave him this backstory of being a spice runner, which I guess is like a drug in the Star Wars
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah, I caught
So
that too. Yeah, I said the same thing. Yeah.
So they added a little more of a. I mean, you knew that Poe was supposed to be the new Han Solo from the get-go, but he didn't really have that brigand backstory.
He doesn't
Yeah.
have the charisma to pull it off. Sorry.
No, and I don't know if that's more the writing than him. I think if given the opportunity,
that's the
it would have been
writing.
good.
I think the actor for Poe is actually fairly strong when he has
Yeah,
decent dialogue to work with. The first movie, he did a decent job, probably above average. The second movie, average, given his whiny little nature, his arguments with the leader chick,
Yeah.
sure.
the dialogue in Last Jedi just blew.
Yeah,
It did.
no, it's got awful.
It did. Yeah, yeah. It had those same struggles as the prequels did. It the dialogue was not good.
I think, I mean, this is definitely an armchair quarterback kind of thing, but the trilogy overall would have benefited from more. It was fun seeing all the main characters on the screen together doing stuff.
It
And this
was.
was like, this was literally the first time we had that. So I think that the trilogy overall would have been better if, because even in the original trilogy, the only time that the main characters were really apart was in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was them
And,
doing stuff, and that's what was
and
interesting.
even then, they kind of grouped them, right? Because you had like Han and crew, and then you had like Luke. So
Yeah.
it really, never really was like pieced out all over the place.
Yeah, I think that trying to think if there's anything else. The Leia's lightsaber felt a little ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
What?
Oh yeah, and here's Leia's lightsaber. Oh.
Yeah, kind of
What?
out of nowhere. Although I gotta say, I guess with Carrie Fisher dying, I'm sure that probably really, put a damper on a lot of what they wanted to do with Leia. And I do think that they did a pretty decent job of taking like leftover film and like being able to put her actually in the film without it feeling too just disjointed.
That's a good point. I guess we haven't talked about that yet. I think they did a good job writing around that, and like you said, using the footage and it. If you had gone into it not knowing that Carrie Fisher had died, I think would still make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they didn't try to like just CG her in there a whole bunch and that kind of thing. So I appreciated that
Yeah.
because I feel like that would have felt cheap.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Chewie getting his medal, right? That was
Yeah, that was a good moment. That was a good, and that's the kind of like subtle nostalgia moment that I think works.
yes. I
You
kind of
know,
thought Maz Kanata was gonna like kiss him because she had a crush on him, right?
yeah,
Well, maybe they should have done something. There's a lot of furries out there. Have a romance between Chewie and maybe another animal, maybe.
See, that
Not
would have been
that
a
he
love
is
story I could get behind.
Next big movie, Chewie in the big city looking for love.
Although Peter Mayhew died too, right?
yeah, I think so.
I mean, obviously you can just get another tall guy to wear the suit, but
Yeah, I think there's a younger guy that's been in in maybe in all of the newer ones. I don't know how far back he replaced him.
The midget who was in C3PO, not C3PO, R2D2, and I heard died also.
Yeah, he did.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I heard that someplace. A lot of them are dying off, so they were lucky to get the trilogy in when they could. Mark Hamill's probably next to go, because given Harrison Ford, he's probably going to live till he's 100. Or
I think
die of
Billy
a heart
D.
attack in the next day.
Billy D's probably gonna be the next one.
I don't know. Mark Hamill, he strikes me as someone with high blood pressure.
I have high blood pressure.
Okay. Good to know which one of us is probably going to croak next.
Jesus,
That's
man.
fucked up. That's fucked up. That was really fucked up.
Sorry, joking. I'm the one
Yeah.
who smoked and drank for many, many years before you, Mike.
Yeah.
I got a lot more years of bad habits in front of you, so Bill's going to be the forever one among us somehow.
Yeah, I think Bill will be the last. This whole thing is taking a turn.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
How about
back
the
to
dark
Star
side, man?
Wars. Oh, how should we finish up with the Star Wars conversation that I was barely a part of, but found the parts interesting to a certain degree?
think-
You want
Go ahead.
you want to go with like a? We can give our final thoughts and 1 through 10 rating.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I give it an A to start with because I didn't see it, and opinions are all over the place. So fuck critics.
Yeah, that's also a funny thing that the critical response and the fan response has been drastically different.
Yeah.
It's not like the Last Jedi where the critics loved it, but the fans were like, it was slightly better than average, which is the way I felt about it. But of course, I have goggle eyes, so as a fan.
I give it a 7 out of 10. I think.
Yeah.
I
that's
liked-
what I was going.
Yeah, I really liked again the original players being relevant to the story. I thought it was visually really good. I thought the writing was fine. I would have made some different decisions in terms of how close Ray's arc, and I probably would have done more with Ben Solo because I thought his parts were really good. But yeah, I'd watch it again. I'd watch this again way before I'd rewatch Last Jedi.
Definitely agreed. Yeah, like I wasn't mad at it. You know, I wasn't coming away like super irritated or like screw this movie. But I wasn't. I think it definitely left a lot on the table. You know, as as a fan, I think, and even as a film like itself, it could have been better. I don't know if it needed more time. I don't know if it needed a better director or what it was. But there was a lot of things that I think were unnecessary and a lot of things left that needed to be fleshed out. So I agree. I think it was like a 7 out of 10. You know, like it was better than a lot of the other films in the series, but it wasn't my favorite. And I you know, I wouldn't say that it was like, you know, super great or super awesome. You know, but it was a solid Star Wars film. Could have been better.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, let me close this out. Thank you for listening to the And Go podcast. And Mike.
Yeah, don't forget to comment and tell us how wrong we are.
How much you hate us.
Yeah.